Hello, I'm Anna and I am leading the session today for session 2 of our trauma-informed yoga program. So whatever you are, you can just come to sit in a comfortable position. This morning I have my mat, but you could easily do the session on the floor or on a blanket. Just make sure that you are able to feel stable and not slip around. We've got a yoga bolster for some of the poses, but you could use cushions. And I've also got a yoga block here, but this could easily be replaced with a couple of books, that kind of thing. So just wherever you are, come to a comfortable seated position if you want to. And just remember that in trauma-informed yoga, everything is about choice. So if you would prefer to just lay down on your mat or sit still, whatever feels good for you is definitely fine, whatever time you are taking this class. So last week we spoke a little bit about yoga philosophy and how in traditional yoga philosophy there are these kind of ideas for life, these principles for life to help us. And the 5 yamas was what we talked about, and how one of these yamas was the idea of non-greed or non-stealing, and we talked about the principle of not taking too much of things that aren't good for us, like overeating or too much of somebody else, that kind of thing. And so another principle of yoga is that yoga, the idea of yoga, so yoga means to yoke the mind and the body. And there are 8 limbs of yoga, or 8 paths, and each of these paths is designed to help us bring this union to the body. And just one of those limbs is the asana practice. So the asana practice is your moves, your poses that we kind of think of as yoga, often in Western countries. But actually, as important as those positions is our pranayama, which is your breath work, your meditation. There are these 8 principles which are just as important as those poses. So I'm going to talk to you here just for a moment about limb 7, dhyana, which is the Sanskrit word for meditation. And it's not an effortful practice. It's understood as the spontaneous opening of the heart that is the result of the disciplined practice of the 6 previous limbs. It's our own presence in stillness with a quiet yet awake mind. But the thing about trauma and stressful events is that to protect ourselves, we have very much learnt to disconnect from our experience and from our bodies. And often our minds become very busy places, and our bodies are somewhere that we can't connect to. And our minds are filled with busyness to avoid the thoughts that you don't want to have. And it's good to kind of honour that that is what our body has done to protect us. But to find safe ways to inhabit our body again. So what this practice now, in a moment, once we've done a little bit of grounding, asks us to do is become a witness to that experience. So to sit with your body and to notice those sensations and what they might mean, or those emotions and what might arise for you. And also just to sit with our mind a little bit and to notice, is it busy? Is there a lot of chatter? That kind of thing. Not to judge it, just to be aware of it. So the idea is that in time you will discover a quiet place that exists below the chatter of your mind, beyond the roles that you play in the world, and beneath the wounds that you have experienced. Yoga ultimately invites you into this deep inner knowing of true self. The eighth limb of yoga, Samadhi, is a unified state of pure awareness that allows you to be fully immersed in the present moment. And hopefully, and I'm sure for all of us, there have been moments where we have been able to find that presence and that peace. Maybe it's when you're out in nature, taking the dog for a walk. It might be a hobby that you've found to be helpful. Often runners will be able to experience that kind of peace, or cycling, maybe singing, something like that, a form of volunteering. There can be lots of places, outdoor swimming, that help us to connect to that space, and that's the space that we're trying to bring more to ourselves and to our bodies regularly through our yoga practice. So, what we really want is for us to be able to notice and witness the sensations that distract us, but then to be able to bring helpful movement and, say, breathwork practices to our body to help us to reconnect deeper. Because it's the trauma that takes us away from our bodies, and then we're bringing notice and awareness to that, and then finding and using yoga to reconnect in a safe space. So it says, connecting to your inner self, observing ultimately, and allowing you to lovingly attend to your emotions and sensations. Imagine that the wisest version of yourself is holding space for your wounds. Over time, this state of ease becomes easier to access, even during the challenging moments of life. In time, with practice, you can learn to live more fully in the present moment, which allows you access to the clarity of your true self and to the wisdom of pure awareness. So just wherever you are, and if you want to, then you can close your eyes if that feels comfortable. If it doesn't feel comfortable, then maybe just looking down. Wherever you are and whatever position you're in, connecting to the space you are in, bringing your attention to the space that you are in. What do you notice around you? Can you hear any noises? And then maybe bringing your attention a little bit closer to your body and to where you sit. Notice your feet touching the floor or the mat. Maybe notice what your hands are doing. And are you able to really quieten down and to listen to your breath? Does it flow? or is it catching? And how is your body doing today? How does it feel? Is there energy or stillness? Are there tight spots or any pain, or do you feel okay? Not judging, just noticing. And how is your mind doing? Is there a lot of chatter? Or are you able to connect to this moment? What have you put in place for yourself today so far to help you? It's just as simple as, have you had enough water today? And staying, if you're able, in that position. Shifting your body if you need to a little. And then coming back to stillness if it feels okay. And just imagine that you are sitting alongside a river. And whenever a thought, an emotion, or a sensation arises, imagine you're placing it on a leaf and allowing it to flow downstream. And maybe you notice if you have a desire to hang on to any particular thought, emotion, or sensation, or other story in your mind. And just honour this without judgment. And maybe you experiment with placing it into the river. There is no need to resist your thoughts, emotions, or sensations. They will continue to come, and this is completely normal. Notice what it's like to allow your experiences to come and go. And notice how it feels to be the witness of your internal experience. And just wherever you are, you can open your eyes for a minute, get comfortable again whilst we think about our breath just for a moment. So we talked a little bit about our autonomic nervous system and how it's this that responds and controls those automatic responses in our body, such as our heart and our breath work, the things that we don't have to think about. And so our nervous system every day is moving in and out of different states. And if we have experienced trauma, then we are more likely to end up in that fight or flight state, that kind of hyperarousal or hypoarousal. And it's our nervous system which, to protect the body and to help the body, has moved us into that fight or flight or freeze state. And that allows us to kind of be able to deal with situations. But what has happened if we have experienced trauma is that we tend to become much more likely to get into that state very quickly. We get sometimes stuck in that state. So what we want to do is to learn to find ways, and what this course is all about is learning to find ways to control that nervous system response again, which is possible through a few different techniques, which we'll talk about over these weeks. And in class on Friday, I had some diagrams, and one of them showed a chart of this, of our day and how we kind of go along, and our nervous system sort of has these spikes and these drops into hyperarousal or hypoarousal. But if we can learn to keep in that midline and not stray up or down too much, then that's what allows us to be able to respond to the difficult situations in a kind of more calm or balanced manner. So, you know, somebody cuts you up in the car and you're not excessively getting cross. Something happens with your kid, or something that's quite kind of an emotional thing, and you won't respond in quite such an extreme way if we've managed to get control of our nervous systems. Again, a healthy nervous system is able to move from rest and digest into fight or flight, because both are healthy things, but be able to move back so you can flow between the two appropriately. So here in this book it says that the autonomic nervous system is like the fairy tale of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And in this story, Goldilocks enters the house of the three bears and tries each of their porridge, and finds that one bowl is too hot and one bowl is too cold, but the third is just right. And these bowls of porridge correspond with the states of our nervous system. So being too hot represents that kind of overactive sympathetic nervous system that might lead you to feeling keyed up, anxious, irritable, panicky. Being too cold represents this hypoarousal, they call it dorsal vagal, which leads us to feeling shut down, depressed, collapsed and hopeless. However, by engaging our systems, engaging our nervous system, working on this vagus nerve, we can begin to feel just right. So we're going to do our balanced breath now, which is about balancing the nervous system and finding that spot, if you want to. So maybe just closing your eyes for a minute, because that helps us connect into our breathing. Maybe you're able to notice your breath a little bit now. Noticing your body sensations, or any emotions that are present for you in this moment. This serves as a baseline and allows you to notice subtle changes in how you feel during your breath work, your pranayama practice. So noticing now your breath. Can you sense the weight of your breath at all? Can you soften the intensity of your breath so that it feels lighter and softer? Like a lake on a calm day, your breath would not create any ripples on the surface of the water. And maybe begin to notice the length of your breath. Exploring a count of 4 on each inhalation, a count of 4 on each exhalation. And bringing that sensation of lightness to your breath. And then maybe with me, you want to join me on a breath count. So I will count us through 5 rounds of breathing with an inhalation for 6 and an exhalation for 6. But if that doesn't feel good for you, then do whatever count you want to, or just come back to your normal pattern of breathing. So again, just noticing what your breath is doing. And then inhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And inhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And inhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And inhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And one more time. Inhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just slowly coming back to your normal breath. And in the quiet for a moment. If you were here last week, then we set a sankalpa or an intention for the course. Maybe you set one. Maybe you couldn't think of anything, that's totally fine. But if you did set one, or maybe there's something that comes to you this morning. So a sankalpa or an intention is like a promise or a vow, something that you want to bring to these 10 weeks. It might be an affirmation. I can find safety in my body. My body is designed to look after me. My breath work brings me control. A positive statement, something like that, that you just say to yourself in the quiet now and work with for the next 10 weeks. And then when you're ready and when you want to, just coming to a sitting position, maybe your knees are crossed. And I had drawn out in class last week the image of the vagus nerve, which we talked about a little bit, and how this vagus nerve runs all the way down our spine and really controls our nervous system response, and that we can learn to control our nervous system and one of the ways is through the toning of this vagus nerve, so through our breath work, but also through our movements. So now we're going to start the class with these movements through our spine that we did last week. So I can turn to the side a little bit so you can see. But just wherever you are, and if you want to, maybe placing your hands on your knees and exhaling as you round the back as much as feels good for you. And inhaling forward if it feels okay, looking up. And maybe exhaling the back, rounding back. Inhaling forward, looking up. One more time if you want to, pushing back, rounding back as you exhale. And inhale, looking forward, gaze coming up. And coming back to your normal spine. We'll take a couple of twists if that feels okay. So taking your left hand to the right knee, bringing your right hand to the base of your spine and twisting round, just noticing the sensations in the body. And release when you're ready, and swapping to the other side. So right hand to left knee, left arm to the base of your back if it feels okay, using that motion to help you twist round. Maybe noticing how one side feels different to the other. And release. And this time we're going to come to stand up onto our mats. And this is where it might be helpful to have your block in a minute or your books. So we're just going to spin the arms a little bit if that feels okay. So stretching them out, twisting one way. And then if it feels okay, coming back, twisting the other way. Coming back. And again, twisting that way. Moving that spine if it feels good. Twisting the other way. And release. And maybe, and if you want to, then dropping the right hand down the arm, lifting up, reaching over that side bend. Remembering to breathe. When you're ready, exhaling down, reaching up and over on the other side. Exhaling down when you're ready. Maybe one more either direction. Inhale up and over. Exhaling down. And one more in that other direction. And release. And then from here, if you want to take the forward fold, then we would come into our mounted position. So feet either together or hip width apart. Inhaling, arms up. Maybe reaching them back, the arms back a little bit, so it's a bit of a gentle back bend. And then exhaling as you forward fold down. And maybe bringing your hands to the block or to the floor. You can bend your knees as much as you need to here to allow you to find that fold. Maybe your tummy is dropping towards the tops of your thighs. Maybe you shake your head from left to right, just exploring what feels good for your body in this moment. And at all times, if you can, remembering to let that breath flow. And slowly and gently bending the knees and rolling upwards if it feels okay, vertebrae by vertebrae. Bringing the head up last. And we'll take that same fold again if you want to. Reaching up, maybe adding your gentle back bend. And then forward folding. You might want to change the height of your block. Letting your breath flow. Imagining you're directing your breath to those tight spots.
And then slowly and gently, when you're ready in your own time, rolling all the way up to the top. And we're going to come into a tabletop position. So, in this position where we've got our hands underneath our shoulders and underneath our elbows, we're just going to start working a little bit of movement into the back again. And maybe doing that same kind of cat-cow position in your back. Just noticing any tight spots, imagining that you're massaging that whole spine as you roll your back up and down, but again, just stopping if anything doesn't feel good. And in our body, we have this connective tissue in between our joints. You can just keep moving your back in whatever way feels good for you here. Or come into a child's pose if you'd rather rest for a moment. So this connective tissue we call our fascia, and it is a nourishing layer of nerves that sits and tissues. It's a kind of fibrous web that sits in between the different organs of our body, in between our joints, even in our lungs, our heart, sort of in between everything. And it's described as the largest sensory organ of the body. And a small amount of hardening of the fascia occurs each night when you sleep. But this can be remedied each morning as we stretch and move the body. So in the same way that a dog will kind of naturally do that stretch when they wake up in the morning, it's just beginning to move the body again. And without movement, and sometimes when we have experienced this kind of self-protection from our emotional trauma or our physical injury, is this hardening of the fascia can build up, and it results in these chronic pain conditions. So what we really want to do is find movement and breath work that feel okay for our bodies, to feel okay to start to move in these ways. That's why we talk in yoga about an embodied practice. So just wherever you are, noticing the sensations that are in your body. You may feel an urge to reject uncomfortable sensations. You might need to find balance in attending to discomfort in your body. We don't want to become flooded and overwhelmed, but sometimes it is helpful to bring awareness to our sensations. So I invite you to think of an embodied practice as a conversation with your body, where you listen to your sensations, which allow you to respond with breath and movement. When you ask your body, did I get it right? Listen to feedback in form of emotions and changes in sensations or overall ease. Notice if you have a tendency to be aggressive with yourself. If you experience a stuck sensation, gently rest your attention there and ask for this part of your body what it needs from you. For example, if you're experiencing tension in your shoulders, explore why you feel this way. breathe into your feelings. You might notice knot in your throat, heaviness in your chest, or tightness in your belly. But through your breath work, this will in time begin to soften. Your breath is a signal that you are paying attention. Remember, yoga invites you to create union between your body, breath, mind, and soul. Using intentional breathing, you're creating these connections in a way that helps you tune into how your body intuitively wants to move out of your fight and flight and freeze response. So if you have been in a kind of child's pose, we'll just take a few more of those cat-cow movements as you work into that fascia in your body. Just gently and in your own time with your inhale and exhale. And then maybe bringing both hands to the right and taking a twist in the body so that you look down to your right hand toes. And maybe coming back to middle and swapping to the other side. So you look down to your left hand toes. And back to the middle. And this next position can be quite tight on the shoulders. So you may want to use a block under your chest, or your bolster or your pillows under your chest. So trying to keep your, if it feels okay, your knees stacked under your hips. So in the child's pose we push our bums back, but in this one we're keeping our knees stacked over your hips. And when you're ready, and if you want to, if it feels okay, listening to your body as you walk your hands out in front of you, fingers nice and wide, stretching out for some stability, and then dropping your chest down towards your mat, as if your chest is going to touch your mat first, and then maybe bringing your head to the mat or turning your face to the side. Just acknowledging that this can be quite an intense shoulder stretch as you work into that fascia. So just really breathing, inhaling and exhaling, and if you feel uncomfortable, then coming out at any point. And then slowly and gently pushing back up onto your hands as you're able to push your body back into that tabletop position. Stretch out your shoulders in whatever way you might need after that, if that feels okay. And then if you want to, but also rest is totally an option. Then coming back into that tabletop position, and we'll take our downward dog. So tucking the toes, bringing your hands underneath your shoulders, elbows underneath your shoulders, fingers spread nice and wide. Weight, if you can, into that first finger and thumb, lifting the knees, pushing the hips up to the sky, bending the knees as much as you need to, just doing this if it feels okay. Maybe you're able to work on drawing your hips down towards your heels down towards the mat. But what we really want to do is, if that's a struggle, we can put a bend in our knees and just use that to help your hips point towards the ceiling. And again, keep breathing here. And slowly and gently releasing back down to the ground, coming in to that tabletop position again for a moment. And from here we are going to stand at the top of our mat if it feels okay and if you want to keep going. So we're going to take a mountain pose, so maybe feet are together, maybe they're hip distance apart. Thinking about drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Everything is stacked on top of one another. If you're used to bringing your head forward a lot, then just drawing that chin back a little bit. Finding that stability and connection to the ground beneath your feet. And then if you want to, turning the body to the side so that you can take that back foot to a 45-degree angle. You might want to widen your legs a little bit here, keeping your body stacked in line with your hips if you can. Trying to put weight into the back edge of that foot. Inhaling, arms up. If you want to, looking at that front arm, warrior two. And bringing that elbow down to the knee maybe, and reaching up and over, remembering to breathe. Maybe inhaling the arms back up, straightening and dropping the arms down and swapping to the other side. Just find your stability in whatever way you need to, and rest if you want to. Warrior two again on the other side. Maybe bringing the elbow down to the knee, reaching up and over. Inhaling, arms coming up, back to middle when you're ready. Coming back up, turning the foot back to the front of the room. Keeping those legs straight this time if it feels okay. Arms straight out and reaching. We're going to do our triangle pose. So it can be helpful here to have your block somewhere sort of near the inside edge of that foot. Inhaling, arms up. Reach, reach, reach. Exhaling as you turn your body so that your hand reaches the block. Inhaling, arms up. And then coming back up again. Swapping, if you want to the other side. So you move your block again to the inside edge of the other foot. Reaching arms up, reach, reach, reach to the front of the room and turning the body. Again, just noticing the sensations, noticing what is arising for you. Are there tight spots? Are there different emotions that come up? And inhale, back up again. And this time we'll take a forward fold if you want to in this same position. So toes are pointing out in front of you, legs slightly wide if that feels comfortable. Again, you might want to use your block here. So we're just going to reach down, whatever way feels good for you. Maybe your hands are coming down to the ground or to your block. Maybe your head is hanging heavy. Maybe you can find stability by pushing the weight into the outside edges of your feet. Remembering your breath. Are you able to find that balanced breath? And slowly and gently pushing back up again. And from here, that we've moved out of this kind of series of nice strengthening triangle poses, we're going to come back to our main strengthening pose, our mountain pose. And just again, finding that stability in your feet if you're able to and if you want to, and resting as well if that's what feels good for you. We spoke last week about this idea in yoga of rooting down to rise up. And this is a nice idea for us, that we root down into what grounds us. We root down into the earth. We root down into our present moment to stabilise our nervous systems and to work on that balance. So if you want to, maybe just bringing the foot to the ankle, or maybe once you've found a little bit of balance, so we talk in yoga about our drishti point, so finding something in front of you that doesn't move. Maybe you can bring your foot to your calf, and again just working on that breath work. Or maybe you're able to bring that foot to your inner thigh, and don't look at me because I'll wobble. Maybe your hands are in prayer. Maybe you're able to bring them up above you. And if you fall out of the pose, that's totally fine. Just come back to your breath. Find your stability in your foot on the ground. And come back into the pose. And release slowly and gently the way that you went in if you're able. And again, if you want to, doing the same on the other side. So maybe starting at your ankle, really finding the four corners of the foot that's on the mat or on the ground. Finding that point in front of you. Connecting to your breath. Noticing what is the same or what is different on this side. Letting the breath flow. And releasing down. And coming into our child's pose for a moment, if that feels like a comfortable position for you. Maybe you're taking your cushions here and placing them under your head, turning your cheek to one side or keeping your head down. And taking a moment to rest and reset. And yoga is a lovely practice for life, because in those challenging positions, whatever position it is for you that you notice is more challenging. So for me, it's my back bends, and back bends are quite a classic position to hold your breath in. It might be your balancing positions. It could be anything. It could be having tight hips and you find that you hold your breath in certain positions when things get tough. But for me, what I really need to work on is opening up and bringing that breath to my back bend practice. And maybe it's the same for you in your balancing positions or whatever it is. But it's the same in our lives as well, bringing our breath to those challenging moments. Remembering that it takes a while for our nervous system reset to kick in, but it does happen. And you can trust that that happens. And then slowly and gently, and if you want to, coming out of your child's pose position and coming to lie on your back in your final resting pose. We call our Shavasana. If you have any back pains, lower back pains, maybe you want to bring your feet, soles of your feet to the floor and just let your back reset here. Maybe you want to cover yourself with a blanket. Maybe you want to roll to the side. Whatever position that is for you, is coming to stillness. Letting go of the day that has gone before you so far. Letting go of my instructions. Trying to find rest and peace. And then slowly and gently, if you would like to stay in this position longer, then do whatever is good for you. You can just let this recording run out and stay in your resting pose. If you are ready, then you can bring some movement to your fingers and toes. Maybe just some awareness back to the room, to where you are. And then slowly and gently, when you're ready, maybe rolling onto your side and coming up into a sitting position. If you want to, just keeping your eyes closed for 1 more minute. Just noticing how your body and your mind is doing now. Bringing that awareness and that witness to that. Connecting through to those spaces that allow us to come to those limbs of yoga where we find that peace. And then maybe in the quiet, just connecting to your intention again. Maybe just thanking yourself for taking part in this yoga practice today. And slowly and gently open your eyes. And well done, everyone. So if you have any questions at all, then do get in touch with me and you can send me an email. And yeah, I hope you feel okay after the practice. I hope it was helpful, and